small little pleasures of life that I had in Ireland, and I, of course, couldn't find any of that here because everything was in a totally different scale. I thought the children I was taking care of were totally spoiled. They had everything, but they were still bratty. And I just wanted to be back there and be just like a child almost again. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Hanging out, having fun, going to the Cayley dances. And, you know, I was just like a child when I came here.
Was 17, that's pretty young.
You know, I was like so innocent, so scared of the whole world.
Oh, yeah.
Never had been to Galway City maybe twice in my whole life before I came here.
Yeah. Did your mother ever come out here?
Never did.
No, she never.
She always promised and promised and promised, but she was very much a homebody, and she thought that the whole house was going to fall down if she left.
Of course, yeah. How about the weather, the comparison between the weather?
The weather I remember as being, you know, never cold in Ireland when I was a youngster. Now when I go back, I'm freezing, even if it's 70 degrees. It's unbelievable. But we had no heat. We had the open fire that was going all the time. And if you were cold, you just put on a sweater if you were lucky enough to have an extra one.
Yeah.
And whether it rained or not, you just went outside.
Yeah.
And when your clothes, on our way to school, if we got wet, we just sat in the wet clothes all day. There was no changing, no drying, nothing. You just sat in your wet clothes. With the results, I have arthritis everywhere now.
Oh my gosh. There was no fire in the classroom?
No,
or
nothing. No.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and of course they didn't pretend how you got there. They didn't care how you got there.
Yeah.
But you had to be there, and if you were 5 minutes late, you got the stick.
Yeah.
And I remember getting the stick several times from the nuns. In fact, I had a nun break my finger right here in two, split this finger from, so I'm not really giving a good reputation to the nuns, but they were not a bit sympathetic.
And when you went home and showed that to your parents, was there any?
Well, you were questioned why, and if it was something, you know, I don't know exactly what I did,
Yeah.
probably didn't have my lessons done, you might get another crack.
So you didn't want to complain?
No, so you just wrapped it up and just went on.
Yeah, it just didn't make any.
Make no bones about it.
Yeah.
My mom would say, well, you didn't get it unless you needed it. You deserved it.
Yeah.
That was the attitude.
Yeah.
And then you were so scared that you couldn't remember your name, never mind learning anything. The nuns would stand behind you. I remember they used to teach us knitting, and you had the needles, and you were supposed to keep these two thumbs together at all times. In other words, you couldn't just take it off to wrap the thread around. You were supposed to be able to bring this around like that. And you got it across the knuckles with the ruler, the back of the ruler, if you didn't do it right.
So that wasn't make it any easier to do it the next time, did it?
Oh, no, you were shivering. You couldn't do it.
Trembling.
Yeah, you couldn't do it. I remember the same with the sewing. We took cooking classes, you know. I remember making fried eggs and bacon and trying to turn the egg over without breaking the yolk. And you got a crack for that, too, if you didn't do it right.
Oh,
We used to call it crack, you know, when they
yeah,
hit you.
Right, yeah, right. Oh.
They were very mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they were supposed to be so religious.
Didn't ever have any feeling that you wanted to become a sister, I imagine.
Oh, dear God, I would have run 1,000 miles away from them.
Yeah. And how about the weather here when you got here?
I hated the heat. Hated it. I came in the middle of the summer, and right away they stripped off my clothes, the heavy clothes coming from Ireland. Of course, you didn't have the summery things, but I remember them taking me downtown, buying me, you know, sleeveless dresses that I thought were obscene,
Yeah,
because I never saw them before, and you know, the lighter clothes, and all, but it's just sweating my brains out for the first summer until you get acclimated to it, you know. And I love the heat now, but that was a big adjustment.
And how about the cold of the winters?
Didn't mind that as much, because, you know, I was younger, and you know, you could always bundle up, but the heat was like, and people didn't have air conditioning in the cars or even in the houses at that time.
Just fans, right?
Yeah.
How do you think Ireland has changed since you came here?
Well, from, you know, what I hear and of course what I saw when I was over there, I think it's just going way too fast, and kind of like here, they're really losing the important things. You know, they have all the luxuries that we have here, but they're really losing the family traditions. They're nobody really sits down to a meal over there because everybody's on the hop and everybody's working and they're going here and going there and they're just popping in and out and hi, and there's a lot of disrespect for the elderly in Ireland. They're just, they're not taken in and they're not kept in the homes anymore like they used to be. And they're totally gone away from the faith. There's very few of the young people going to church. And, there's a lot of stuff going on, really, that wasn't going on, but you have to kind of expect it because it's going on all over the world. But to see it happening in Ireland is like hard to take because it was so different.
Yeah. It stayed very pure for so long.
Yes.
Didn't it?
Yeah.
It's a shame now. I think drugs has a lot to do.
Oh yeah, drugs, and they're all well off. They have lots of money, and of course when you have very affluent and you have money to get this kind of stuff, and cars and travel, and it's a faster life now.
It is.
We didn't have any of that, so we were very inhibited, really,
Right. And there's a lot of immigration coming into Ireland now.
Yes, and you can't find a person, a native of Ireland over there now to do, if you want, we'll say, for instance, pick potatoes. I have a cousin who comes over here to visit us all the time, and he's a very big farmer, and he sows a lot of crops for market. And he has to, he employs people from foreigners,
From other countries, yeah.
other countries. They come in, you give them a few dollars an hour, and to pick potatoes, to pick cabbages, pick whatever for the market on Friday. And they could be these young guys, like even going to school, they would be just walking the streets, but they won't do it. They don't want to work on the farms. So with the result that there's no farming done in Ireland now, except for an odd one here and there, that there's a lot of money to be made if you can do it, because you can sell the product. Right. Everybody has to eat, so if you can take all these vegetables to market, they pay any price, especially to get it from a reputable grower.
Yes.
But you can't, if you don't have the manpower, you can't do the work.
Yeah.
So it's impossible. They don't even sow potatoes for their own use now, most of them.
Yeah, that's good. It's becoming a lost art.
Lost art.
Shame.
They're buying everything. They're buying milk, they're buying bread, butter, potatoes, and the meat. They don't believe in bacon anymore. They don't want to kill the pigs because nobody wants to eat the fat. And so it's like totally turning around.
Yeah, it is. It's a different culture.
Different.
Right? Yeah.
And if you mention bacon and cabbage to the young people over there, they say, "Oh, you're gross."
That's my favorite.
And of course,
meal when
I
go to
couldn't
Ireland.
wait to get it.
Oh,
I
I
could.
love
You
it.
mean to tell me the Yank is going to eat bacon?
Oh,
I said, don't even consider me a Yank when there's bacon, because I love it.
me too. I actually learned how to cook it on the top of a turf stove this time when I was over there.
That's when it's good.
Oh, it was
Yeah.
delicious. Oh,
Yeah.
I was so proud of
But they
myself.
don't want anything to do with that.
Yeah.
And you have a lot of the young people that are just vegetarian now, just like here.
Yeah.
And what's in it and what's it made of and da-da-da-da, and they won't eat it. It was never like that in Ireland. You were just glad to get it. Yeah.
How's your life changed? How's your life been different here, do you think, than it would have been if you'd stayed in Ireland?
And my life, was, thank God it has been a good life. But when I first started out, when I got married in 1960, and then I had children right away, and I was a stay-at-home mom, and we only had one car, and so, I wasn't the spoiled little brat in the neighborhood, because I, had to take the bus if I wanted to go downtown. If I had to go to the gynecologist, I took a bus. Or if I wanted to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and take Frank to the railroad station, I might be able to have the car,
Right.
Yeah. And Frank worked shift, and so I basically had to stay home and listen for the phone. Because when he came home, he went to bed and he'd say, well, I'm going to expect the crew to call me, so answer the phone. So we didn't have portable phones. We didn't have cell
Answering
phones.
machines.
So I couldn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
If I went outside, I couldn't go any place that I couldn't hear the phone. Because if I missed the call, I might as well be just heading out.
Yeah.
Because that was a whole day's pay that he'd
Sure,
miss.
yeah, you'd miss a day's pay.
Yeah, and it was like he'd get up. He might they'd say, "Can you report to Grand Central at, we'll say, maybe like in 2.5 hours," and I would start to get the dinner ready, or boil a potato or something. We didn't have a microwave, and of course he had to have his potatoes, so I would cut them up small so they would cook fast, and sometimes he'd leave without it because, he was catching a train out of Fairfield, or he'd have to go to New Haven or wherever. So, it was hard for a long time. And then, like everything else, it changed, and then I had a car of my own, and I was able to go visit my sisters and, get around a bit.
Yeah.
But I was so happy doing it because I was so, we bought a brand new house that nobody had ever lived in.
Where's that?
I live in Wilson Street in Fairfield.
Okay.
And of course I thought I was like, the luckiest person on earth, and shopping for stuff for it, and I was quite happy, doing that.
Yeah.
And then I was very lucky to, have my rest of my family so close, because I could go visit, them, and they would come over with their kids, and they were good old times.
Yeah. So you didn't really take the children when they were little back to Ireland to see?
Oh no,
they didn't have
because,
that.
we were so busy, and Frank he just was working and doubling out, and we were just on this merry-go-round for years. And then they were in high school, and you wouldn't take them out, and then it was college, and then you had to have the money. And then the day came when we finally said, well, this is it, we're just going to, it was actually my daughter-in-law that orchestrated the trip and set it all up for us, and we did it, and I'm so glad we did. Yeah.
So you yourself, you didn't go back that many times from the time you left when you were 17? Or?
Not that much. I went back 5 years after I was here. And before I got married, and then I came back here. I got married, and then I didn't go back again for, oh God, maybe going on 20 years.
Wow, that was a long time.
Yeah. And then I went back quite a bit. I went back to see my mom. She wasn't doing so well. Then I went back the following year, and that was the year she passed away. And then I went back. Then I went back 4 years ago with the family, and then I went back 2 years ago. I went back 3 times. I went for a wedding, which was a great thing. It was a cousin, but then my brother dropped dead in the bathroom. I went back for that, and then 6 weeks later, his wife died.
Oh my God.
Yeah, she had ovarian cancer,
Oh.
and that was 3 times in 1 year. And so now my house that I grew up in is closed up.
It is.
Yeah.
No one lives there anymore at all.
Nobody in the house now. We were all there once, but my nephews are going to fix it up a little bit, modernize it a little bit, and maybe rent it out or something, because they all have new houses of their own now.
Yeah. Are you tempted to go back now yourself?
No, I don't think I could stand it.
You wouldn't be able
to deal with it.
Yeah.
It's too painful, Peg.
Oh.
You walk in the door and there's nobody there, and
All the memories are there, though.
all the memories are there, good and bad and everything else.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
Well,
So it's hard. You
yeah.
come back and you're very, very saddened, because I did go back, like when my sister-in-law passed away, that was 6 weeks after my brother, and when I walked in, I thought I was in another world, to think that after all the hustle and bustle that was there, it's now all quiet.
Yeah.
It's very, very strange feeling.
Very strange,
Yeah.
Sad, very sad.
Yeah.
Did you have any interesting characters that you would talk about? Anybody that was a real interesting character in your life that, when you look back?
I think the most interesting thing, other than all the stories I used to hear them tell, was, this is a definite too, a house that was haunted.
Tell about that. That
Yeah.
sounds interesting.
Yeah. It was a pub, actually, and there were 2 sisters that ran it, and one of the sisters had been in this country for a while but went back to Ireland, and there was a rumor that different people were seeing things happening in this place, in this pub, bottles moving on the shelves, and noises, and I mean, most people will laugh at this, but this is the truth, because eventually the house had to be the exorcism had to take place, and one of the sisters was in this country when this happened, and she had to come back to be with her other sister because she was having a nervous breakdown.
Her sister back home was
Yes,
having a breakdown.
because she couldn't deal with this. And it went on for like months. And tables and chairs would be tumbled upside down. And, you know, I used to hear them talking about it. And eventually they got a priest in there to perform exorcism. And things were quieted down after that. And I thought, my God, what, you know, is this real or is this real? But it was real.
It was. And was that in Canberra?
Yep.
Wow.
Right in the middle of the town.
Wow.
Yeah.
And is it still there? The pub's
It's
still there now?
changed hands now, and
Yeah.
it's under a different name, and you know.
Yeah.
But that's about the most interesting story I can tell you.
And Lisdoonvarna is fairly close to Canberra, isn't it?
Lisdoonvarna.
Yes. Did you ever get to Lisdoonvarna?
Oh yeah, they have. My brother-in-law used to go there to sell different stuff from the farms, and he took us over there a few times. And I remember him telling us the story about going there. You know, if you were a single man and you wanted to find a wife. I thought, oh my God, what is that all about? But it was the truth. They would come from all over Ireland, hundreds of them. And it's still going on.
And the women too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
The tradition is still going on.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they're what, matchmakers?
Well, now it's kind of like you'd meet somebody see somebody across the room and, you know, whatever, get together. But back then it was like kind of people would put you together.
Do you ever know anybody that met and married
I
there?
don't know anybody personally, but, you know, evidently it must have worked because it went on. It's gone on and on for 100 years.
Yeah. And aren't there some kind of special baths
Yes,
in that area?
there are. Yeah.
Sulfur baths?
Sulfur baths, yeah. I never, you know, went in them or anything, but people used to go for arthritis and stuff like that into those.
Yeah. Yeah. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Not far from home, huh?
Not far from home at all.
Do you have a favorite childhood memory of home? Something that just stands out in your mind as being something?
I do, and I think being that I was the youngest in the family, I was kind of like, well, you wouldn't really call it special, but I'm sure to my parents I was special. But my dad was, you know, I always remember him as being very old, you know, because he was much older than my mom. And when he would be eating breakfast and he had his egg, he always took the cap of the egg and gave it to me.
Oh, yeah.
And I just felt like a princess. Yeah, it's just little things like that.
Yeah.
And I remember my mom, I had kind of long hair and very curly always, and she used to twist it, you know, like this with her finger and make like ringlets all around.
Yes.
And you know, the feeling of that when somebody's, you know, touching your hair.
Gestures.
Oh, it's just, it was so special.
Yeah, those are nice.
Yeah,
Those are
just
nice
simple
memories.
things, but they were like so great because, needless to say, she was a very busy mom and didn't have the time to devote to too many of those little things. But or if I sat on her knee, she would do that, you know, or rub your back or something.
Yeah. Did your mother ever end up with a turf stove to cook on in her life?
Yeah, they finally progressed a little bit, and they got the range, as they call it, and which is still there. And then my sister-in-law, after my brother got married in the house there, when my mom was still there, they also got the cooker.
Oh.
And so they had that. It was a gas cooker, I guess. So they only really used the range for, you know, really heating the place or to put a fire down or whatever. Basically used the cooker for all the cooking.
Yeah, very nice. Well, I've asked you an awful lot of questions.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you can think of that you'd like to add, that you were thinking yourself that you wanted to be sure to mention during the course of this interview?
I would like to say that I feel very, very fortunate to be in this country because it has been so good to all of us, and particularly to myself and my family. And I just absolutely think that it was just a godsend that we all got here, because I don't know what my life would have been if I had, you know, stayed in Ireland. And to have the opportunity to do the things, you know, that we did here, and make a living and raise children and send them to college and, you know, get very well educated, and they're all very successful, and, you know, whatever successful is. I don't think I could, and above all, I just